The northern wind screamed like a dying god. Snow lashed the mountains, cloaking the world in white silence, and beneath that silence, war waited. At the edge of the fjord, Fenrir Kaelund stood among his warriors, the frozen tide at his feet and the scent of iron in the air. He was 25 winters old, broad-shouldered, with hair the color of burnt gold and eyes like winter fire, cold but alive with hunger. Tonight, he would lead his first true raid as Alpha of the Kaelin clan. His father, Yoren Kaelin, lay dying in the longhouse behind them, struck down not by blade, but by sickness. For months, the old Alpha's breath had rattled like wind through dry bones. The clan whispered that the gods were testing Fenrir now, to see if he was worthy to rule. He did not feel ready, but readiness was a luxury the North never offered. "Storm's easing," said Eric Bloodhand, his sworn brother. The older man's face bore a dozen scars, each one a story carved by battle. "If we leave before dawn, we'll reach the Harlan coast by midday." Fenrir nodded. "And if the gods favor us, we'll return with enough silver to feed every Kaelin mouth through the thaw." A third voice rose behind them, soft but carrying. "And if the gods curse you?" It was Astrid, the seer's daughter. She stood barefoot on the snow, her dark cloak dragging across the ice. Ravens circled above her, like smoke. Astrid was young, but her eyes were older than any man's. When she looked at Fenrir, he felt as if she saw through bone and blood into the hidden places of his soul. "If the gods curse me," he said, his voice steady, "I'll curse them back." Astrid's lips curved, not quite a smile. "Then you'll fit well among the dead." Eric laughed, though uneasily. "She always talks like that before battle." "Maybe that's why she never bleeds. She frightens death away." But Fenrir didn't laugh. Her words lingered, heavy as fog. He turned from her, raising his axe, a broad weapon of dark steel and runes carved into its edge. "We sail within the hour, feed the ravens by sunrise. The long ships cut through the sea like black arrows. The wind filled their sails, the oars dipped and rose, and the men sang low songs to keep time." Fenrir stood at the prow, the salt spray cold against his face. For a moment, he thought of his father, Yoren the Unbroken, who had led raids across the East Sea, who had once faced a Saxon king and lived. The old man's voice echoed in his mind. "A true Alpha rules not by blood, but by fear. Men will follow love for a season, but they will obey fear forever." Fenrir had never liked that lesson, but he understood it now. The raid on Harlan began with fire. The Kaelin warriors stormed the shore before dawn, axes glinting in the half-light. Fenrir led from the front, roaring his name as he cleaved through shields and skulls. Blood steamed on the snow, houses burned, the smell of smoke mixed with the iron stench of death. Eric fought beside him, cutting down 2 men with a single swing. "The gods smile on us today, brother," he shouted. "They only smile before they bite," Fenrir grunted, driving his axe through an enemy's chest. When the battle ended, silence fell, broken only by the crackle of burning timber. The Kaelin clan had won. Yet victory felt hollow. Fenrir looked around at the corpses, at the women weeping over the fallen, and a strange unease crawled through him. Astrid had been right. He did fit among the dead. That night, the warriors feasted on stolen meat and mead. Fenrir sat apart from them, his axe resting beside him. The firelight flickered on his face, half shadow, half flame. Eric approached, dropping beside him. "You fight like a beast out there," he said. "Even I couldn't keep up." "Maybe that's not a good thing," Fenrir muttered. Eric raised a brow. "Since when did you start questioning the taste of victory?" "Since it started tasting like ash." Fenrir's gaze drifted toward the dark forest beyond the firelight. "Tell me, Eric, do you ever wonder what's beyond all this? Beyond the fjords, the raids, the endless wars?" Eric grinned. "You sound like a dreamer." "There's nothing beyond war. Only more men to fight, more silver to take. Maybe once, Fenrir said quietly, but I've seen visions, cities of stone, towers that touch the sky, lights that burn without fire. A world that doesn't bow to the north. Eric's smile faded. You mean the south. Rome. The word hung in the air like a curse. Days later, they returned home to find the sky darkened with ravens. Fenrir knew what that meant before he saw the smoke from the longhouse chimney. Yoren Kalin was dead. The funeral pyre burned for 3 nights. The clan gathered by the riverbank, chanting to the gods. Fenrir stood before his father's body, wrapped in furs and oil, the flames reflecting in his eyes. Astrid stepped beside him. He waits for you in the halls of the dead, she said, but he does not rest. His spirit stirs. Fenrir turned to her. What do you mean? The old gods are hungry, she whispered. The north is dying. A shadow rises beyond the sea, and it calls your name. Enough riddles, he snapped. Though fear crept under his skin, Astrid's gaze did not waver. You cannot run from fate, Fenrir Kalin. You were born to end the age of men. Then she walked into the night, leaving him alone before the flames. Weeks passed. The clan crowned him as their new alpha. Fenrir led with a steady hand, fair but unyielding. Yet something had changed within him since his father's death. At night, he dreamed of rivers of blood and towers burning under a red moon. He woke with his heart pounding, the taste of iron on his tongue. Eric noticed. You barely sleep, he said one morning as they trained. You're pale as the mist. If I didn't know better, I'd say you were cursed. Maybe I am, Fenrir muttered. Astrid visited him again that evening. Her eyes held both sorrow and knowing. The old gods whisper your name in fear, she said. There are powers older than them, waiting beneath the earth in the dark waters. They offer strength if you dare to take it. Fenrir looked at her. And what would that strength cost me? Your soul, she answered simply. He laughed, a hollow sound. Then it's a fair trade. One night, a storm rolled in from the sea. The sky tore with lightning, and thunder shook the mountains. Fenrir stood alone on the cliff above the fjord, cloak whipping behind him. Below, the waves crashed like beasts against stone. He felt it then, a voice, low and ancient, calling from the depths. Fenrir Kalin. He turned, heart hammering. The voice came not from the air, but from within, cold and heavy as grave soil. Your gods are dying. Your world fades, but I can make you eternal. The sea below churned, glowing faintly red. Come to me, wolf of the north. Drink of my blood, and rise. Fenrir's breath caught. Every instinct screamed to run. Yet something deeper, older, pulled him closer. He stepped to the edge, staring into the storm, into the crimson shimmer beneath the waves. Lightning flashed, and in that light he saw a figure rising from the sea, cloaked in shadow, eyes burning like embers, fangs gleaming beneath a cruel smile. Kneel, mortal. Let the old gods rot and become their end. Fenrir fell to one knee as the sea wind tore around him. He was not praying, he was surrendering to power, to darkness, to destiny, and as the storm swallowed him whole, the world of men would never be the same again. When the storm broke, silence returned to the world. The sea had swallowed Fenrir Kalin whole. Or so the villagers believed. His warriors searched the cliffs for days, calling his name until their voices were torn raw by the wind. They found no body, only his axe, driven deep into the stone, as if struck there by a god. Astrid stood over it when the others had gone. Her cloak whipped in the wind, and her hands trembled as she touched the cold steel. So it has begun, she whispered. The wolf has met the serpent. Beneath the waves, in the black abyss, where no mortal breath could reach, Fenrir opened his eyes. He floated in a crimson haze, water thick with blood. A figure loomed before him, vast and indistinct, more shadow than flesh. Its voice was everywhere, echoing through his bones. You sought power. Now you will bear it. Pain seared through him. His lungs burned, his veins twisted like coiled snakes. He tried to scream, but only blood escaped his lips. The sea itself seemed to invade him, cold and alive, flooding his heart with fire and ice. Your heart is no longer yours, the voice said. It belongs to me, and through me the world will tremble. Then, silence. When Fenrir awoke, he lay upon a shore not far from his village. The moon hung full and red above him, staining the snow like spilled wine. His body felt strange, stronger, heavier, yet empty at its core. He rose slowly, his wet cloak clinging to him. The world was different. He could hear the crackle of fire in far-off hearths, the slow heartbeat of men sleeping miles away, the whisper of wind threading through pine needles. Every sound was sharp, alive. He staggered to the water's edge. His reflection stared back, almost human, but not quite. His eyes glowed faintly crimson. His skin was pale as the moon. When he touched his lips, his fingers came away red. He remembered the voice, the promise, the hunger. And then he felt it, the scent, not food, not drink, something deeper, warm, alive, pulsing, blood. It called to him from the forest beyond, where two hunters were dragging a deer carcass home. Fenrir's body moved before his mind could stop it. He crossed the distance in heartbeats, faster than the wind, silent as death. The hunters turned. Too late. One scream, one heartbeat, then silence again. When he came to his senses, both men lay at his feet, lifeless. His hands were soaked in red. His throat burned no more. He fell to his knees, trembling. What have I become? The wind whispered through the trees, almost like laughter. For 3 nights Fenrir hid in the wilderness. He avoided the village, haunted by the memory of what he had done. The hunger gnawed at him, insatiable. He killed wolves, then deer, but it wasn't enough. The beast inside demanded more. On the 4th night, Astrid found him. She stood at the edge of the forest clearing, torchlight flickering across her face. "You're alive," she said softly. "Am I?" he whispered. "Or am I something else?" She stepped closer, studying him. "Your eyes, they burn like the old fire. I killed 2 of my own." His voice broke. "I couldn't stop it." Astrid didn't flinch. "You carry a curse older than any god. It was not meant for mortal flesh." "Then help me end it," he said, "before it spreads." She hesitated. "There may be a way, but it is not one you'll like. Tell me, the creature that gave you this power, the one in the sea, it's not a god. It's something the old gods buried long ago. To kill it, you must understand it. You must find where it sleeps, and if I fail..." Astrid's gaze darkened. "Then you'll become what it wants you to be, the destroyer of men." Months passed. The Kalen clan began to whisper tales of the ghost of the fjord, a pale warrior seen only under moonlight who walked without breath and whose eyes gleamed like blood. Eric refused to believe it. "He's not dead," he told the clan around the fire. "Fenrir Kalen doesn't die. He's out there, waiting for his time." But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. He missed his brother, the man who had laughed beside him in raids, who had sworn to lead their people to greatness. Then one night he saw him. The full moon painted the valley silver. Eric was on watch when a figure appeared at the tree line, tall, cloaked, eyes burning faint red. "By the gods," he whispered. "Fenrir?" The figure stepped closer, the snow crunching under his boots. "It's me," Fenrir said quietly. His voice carried both warmth and something hollow. "I need your help, brother." Eric's throat tightened. "You're alive. The gods truly favor you." "The gods are dead," Fenrir said, "and something worse wears their skin." Eric frowned. "What do you mean?" "I need warriors," Fenrir said. "Not for raiding, for hunting." There's a creature in the North Sea. It gave me this curse. I mean to end it." Eric hesitated. "You look different. What happened to you?" Fenrir met his eyes. "I'll tell you everything, but not here." By the next day, the village buzzed with rumors. Fenrir Kalin had returned, but the elders saw the change in him, the pale skin, the shadowed eyes, the way firelight didn't touch him quite right. At the council, Elder Stenvar spoke first. "Whatever you've become, it isn't one of us." Fenrir's voice was calm. "I bleed the same as you." Stenvar slammed his fist on the table. "You bring death wherever you walk. The night itself follows you." The room fell silent. Fenrir could hear their heartbeats, smell their fear. Astrid stepped forward. "He is cursed, yes, but he is also chosen. If he can end the shadow that stirs beneath the sea, he can save us all." "Save us?" Stenvar spat. "Or damn us further." Fenrir's patience snapped. "Enough." His voice echoed, low and unnatural. The torches flickered, and every shadow in the hall stretched toward him like claws. "You think you know the gods. You think your prayers reach them. They don't. I've seen what lies beyond your prayers." Silence. No one spoke. Then Eric rose. "I follow him," he said. "He's my brother, by blood and by oath. If he says this monster must die, then we kill it." Slowly, other warriors stood beside him. One by one, they joined Fenrir's cause. The elders said nothing more. They only watched, their faces pale. That night, Astrid came to Fenrir's longhouse. The firelight painted her face gold. "You're changing," she said quietly. "I can feel it," he admitted. "The hunger grows each night. I fear what I'll become before this ends." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. "Then let me remind you what you still are." Her touch burned, not with fire, but with life. For the first time since his curse, he felt warmth flood his veins. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not a seer, but a woman who saw the man inside the monster. "Why help me?" he asked. "Because the gods have abandoned us," she said, "but you haven't." They stood there, caught between breath and silence, until the night swallowed them both. By dawn, Fenrir and his chosen few were ready to set sail. Their ships gleamed under the pale sun, bearing runes of blood and oath. Eric grinned at him. "Just like old times, brother." "Not quite," Fenrir said, watching the horizon. "This time we hunt a god." As they pushed off into the cold gray sea, the wind whispered through the sails, a voice soft and distant. "Come, wolf of the north, your hunger has only begun." And Fenrir Kalin smiled, not in joy, but in defiance, because for the first time he was no longer afraid of the dark. He was the dark. The sea stretched endless and gray, swallowing the horizon in mist. The long ships of the Kalin clan cut through the waves like dark blades, their sails painted with the wolf sigil, Fenrir's mark. For days they sailed through cold storms, chasing whispers and rumors. The nights were filled with strange sounds, groaning winds, echoes that weren't their own, and lights flickering beneath the waves. Eric steered the lead ship, his knuckles white on the oar. "It feels wrong out here," he muttered, "like the sea itself is watching." "It is," Astrid said quietly, standing near the prow. "The creature beneath hasn't slept since Fenrir defied it." It remembers. Fenrir stood silent, his cloak snapping in the wind. He could feel it too, that pull beneath his ribs, like a string tied to the heart of the ocean. It called to him in his dreams. Sometimes he woke with salt on his lips and the sound of distant laughter ringing in his skull. He didn't tell the others. Some fears were too deep for words. On the 7th night, the storm came. Winds howled from the north, tearing through the sails. The ships pitched and groaned, waves taller than mountains crashing over the decks. Men screamed prayers to Thor and Odin, but the gods gave no answer. Through the chaos, Fenrir stood unmoving. His eyes burned faint red in the dark as lightning flashed above. He could feel the sea god beneath, its hunger rising like a heartbeat in the depths. Astrid shouted through the roar of the storm, "It's calling you." "Don't answer." But he already had. The ship lurched violently, throwing half the crew into the black water. Fenrir reached out, catching Eric's arm as he nearly went overboard. Their eyes met, one burning with mortal fear, the other with something older. "Let go, Fenrir!" Eric shouted. "Save yourself!" "Never!" Fenrir growled, pulling him back with inhuman strength. "You're my brother." The wave hit them like stone. Everything went dark. When Fenrir awoke, he was lying on a shore of black sand. The air smelled of iron and rot. Around him were wrecked ships, twisted wood and shattered sails, and the bodies of his warriors. He staggered to his feet, dizzy. The world was quiet. Too quiet. The only sound was the slow lap of waves against the shore. "Eric?" he called. No answer. "Astrid?" Nothing but the whisper of wind through the bones. He was alone, until a voice spoke behind him. "You shouldn't have come here, Wolf." Fenrir turned. A man stood among the wreckage, tall, cloaked in dark furs, his eyes glowing faintly blue. His skin was pale as death, but his movements were graceful, alive. "Who are you?" Fenrir demanded. The stranger smiled. "Once, I was like you, a man, a warrior, until the sea took me." Fenrir's heart sank. "The sea god." The stranger laughed, a sound like breaking ice. "No, the sea god is older. I am its servant." He stepped closer. "And now, so are you." Fenrir clenched his fists. "I serve no one." The man tilted his head. "You already do. The blood that runs in your veins, it's not yours anymore. Every drop belongs to the sea. You can feel it, can't you?" The hunger, Fenrir's jaw tightened. "Then I'll starve it." The stranger's smile widened. "You can't starve the tide, Wolf. You can only drown in it." He raised his hand, and the sea erupted. Figures crawled from the water, pale, bloated corpses with black eyes and gaping mouths. Their armor still bore the marks of long-dead Viking clans. They moved like puppets, pulled by invisible strings. "Welcome your brothers," the stranger said. "They've been waiting for you." Fenrir drew his axe. "Then they'll wait in hell." The dead surged forward. The battle was chaos. Fenrir fought like a storm unleashed, his blades singing through air and flesh. He moved faster than any man, every strike driven by rage and grief. Yet for every corpse he cut down, two more rose from the waves. They clawed at him, teeth snapping, eyes empty. One sank its blade into his shoulder. He barely felt it. He tore its arm free and drove his axe through its skull. Blood, salt, and darkness filled the air. When the last corpse fell, Fenrir dropped to one knee, panting. His wounds healed as he watched, flesh knitting together like weaving thread. The stranger clapped slowly. "Impressive. The blood of the abyss suits you." Fenrir raised his axe, but the man vanished, dissolving into mist. "You'll see me again, Wolf, when the tide comes for Rome." The words echoed long after he was gone. Days passed. Fenrir searched the coast, calling for any survivors. He found Astrid first, half buried in the sand, barely breathing. He carried her to the ruins of a ship and lit a fire. When she woke, her first words were a whisper. "Eric?" Fenrir's silence told her the answer. Tears welled in her eyes. "He was your heart." "He was my brother," Fenrir said quietly, "and I let him die." Astrid reached out, touching his arm. "He died believing in you." "Don't waste it." He turned to her. "The servant of the sea god. He said the tide would come for Rome." Astrid frowned weakly. "Rome? The empire in the south?" "Yes," Fenrir said. "Whatever sleeps beneath the sea has its eyes on that land." "Maybe it's where it was born." She shuddered. "Then that's where we must go." "You would follow me?" "I followed you into death," she whispered. "Why stop now?" Over the weeks, Fenrir gathered what little remained of his men, those who had washed ashore alive. Most were broken, haunted, yet when he spoke, they listened. His voice carried something more than command, something that stirred their blood. He told them of Rome, of the power beneath the sea, of vengeance. They swore oaths in blood and ash. Astrid carved runes into their ship's hull, whispering old words to shield them from the dead waters. Fenrir watched her work, knowing deep down it would not be enough, but he said nothing. Before they set sail, he stood alone at the shore. The sea was calm now, almost gentle. He knelt, pressing his hand to the water. "You took everything from me," he said. "My father, my brother, my soul." The waves lapped softly against his fingers, like mockery. "Now," he whispered, "I'll take everything from you." The horizon burned red as the ship turned south, toward warmer seas, toward Rome, toward war. And far beneath the waves, something vast stirred. In Rome, under marble halls and golden light, a different shadow began to spread. The empire was strong, but uneasy. Whispers of omens filled the air, dead birds falling from the sky, rivers running black, stars vanishing at dusk. In the catacombs beneath the eternal city, priests of the old cult gathered in secret. One of them, cloaked in red, spoke softly. "The sea awakens. The wolf rises. The blood of the north will wash over Rome." A silence followed. Then a single candle went out. At sea, Fenrir stood at the prow, the moon reflecting in his crimson eyes. Astrid approached, her voice low. "Do you ever wonder if the gods planned all this?" He didn't answer. "Maybe," she continued, "they wanted you to become what you are, their vengeance against the world that forgot them." Fenrir turned to her. "Then the gods have made a mistake?" "I don't serve them. I don't serve the sea. I serve only vengeance." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of land. "Rome," he said, his voice like thunder. The sun over Rome burned hotter than any Fenrir had ever known. It blinded him, bit into his skin, and filled the air with the scent of dust and spice. To his men, the city looked like a dream. Towers of marble, golden domes, and 1,000 banners fluttering in the wind. But to Fenrir, it looked like prey. They arrived under disguise, their long ship hidden in the mouth of the Tiber River. Fenrir and Astrid led the first small group through the narrow alleys, dressed in the plain clothes of traders from the north. "Careful," Astrid whispered. "The Romans don't like men with swords." Fenrir smirked faintly. "Then they'll hate me." The streets were alive. Merchants shouting in Latin, children running between stalls, soldiers marching in perfect rhythm. Yet beneath the noise, there was fear. Whispers followed them, rumors of ships vanishing at sea, of a curse spreading from the waters. Astrid caught fragments of conversation. "The priests say Neptune is angry. The sea turned black near the port of Ostia. A northern demon sails toward us." Fenrir's jaw tightened. "The sea god's shadow is already here. They found lodging in a tavern near the southern gate. The innkeeper, a sharp-eyed woman named Lucia, watched them closely. 'You don't look like traders,' she said, pouring wine into clay cups. 'We sell iron,' Fenrir replied. 'Good steel from the north.' She smiled faintly. 'And you carry that iron to cut wood, yes?' Her eyes darted to the axe at his belt. Astrid placed a coin on the table. 'We carry it to protect ourselves.' 'The roads are not kind.' Lucia studied Fenrir a moment longer, then nodded. 'Stay quiet, stranger.' Rome eats the loud ones first that night, while the city slept. Fenrir stood on the roof of the inn, staring at the moon. Astrid climbed up behind him. 'You're restless.' 'There's something here,' he said. 'I can feel it.' The same pull as in the north. weaker but close. She looked uneasy. Then the sea god's hand reaches this far? He nodded. And it hides among men. Before Astrid could reply, the faint sound of hooves echoed in the street below. A column of Roman soldiers passed under them, their armor gleaming in torchlight. At their head rode a tall man with dark hair and a cold expression. His cloak bore the imperial seal, the eagle and laurel. Astrid whispered, "Who is he?" Fenrir watched him closely. "Someone who will matter." The man's name was Cassian Varro, a Roman general known for his victories in the northern wars. He was ruthless, disciplined, and loyal only to Rome, or so the world believed. But that night, Cassian's destination was not the palace. He rode through empty streets to the catacombs beneath the old temple of Neptune. There, hooded figures knelt in a circle around a stone basin filled with black water. Cassian removed his helmet, his eyes reflecting the strange glow from the basin. "The signs grow stronger," one of the priests whispered. "The tides will soon rise." Cassian placed a hand on the stone. "Then let them. If this sea god brings power, Rome will wield it, not fear it." The priest hesitated. "The sea god cannot be used, General. It devours all who—" Cassian's sword flashed. The man's head fell to the floor with a dull thud. "I don't serve gods," Cassian said coldly. "Only Rome." The next morning, Astrid returned from the markets with a rumor that chilled her. "There's a general," she said, "a man named Cassian Varro. They say he speaks to priests who serve something under the sea." Fenrir's gaze sharpened. "Then he's the one." Astrid frowned. "The one what?" "The one who carries the curse inland." That evening, Fenrir went alone to the edge of the city where the old docks lay abandoned. The water there was dark, too dark. He knelt, staring into it. The reflection that stared back was not entirely his own. His eyes glowed faintly red, his face harder than he remembered. "You brought me here," he whispered. "What do you want from me?" A voice, low and distant, rippled through the water. "To finish what we began." The sea boiled for an instant, and from it rose a pale shape, not human nor beast. Its eyes burned like frozen suns. Fenrir stood his ground. "I'm no servant. You are my creation. I'm your curse." The figure laughed softly. "Rome will drown in blood, yours or theirs. It makes no difference." The water stilled again, leaving only silence. When Fenrir returned to the inn, Astrid was waiting. Her face was pale. "What did you see?" she asked. "Enough to know Rome's already doomed," he said quietly. "And us?" He looked away. "We'll decide what we become before it ends." Days passed. Fenrir and his men took work guarding merchant caravans, learning the routes, watching the city's defenses. Astrid gathered whispers from the temples, trying to trace the priests who served the sea god. One night, while they shared bread and ale, one of Fenrir's warriors, a loyal fighter named Torvald, leaned forward. "You've been quiet, Lord," Torvald said. "You're thinking of home?" "I have no home," Fenrir answered. Torvald smiled sadly. "Then make one here. The Romans are fat and lazy. We could take this city by sunrise." Astrid shot him a sharp look. "We didn't come to conquer. We came to stop what's coming." Torvald shrugged. "And if the only way to stop it is to burn it?" Fenrir didn't answer, but the thought rooted deep in his mind. That same night, Cassian Varro stood before the emperor himself, Marcus Aurelius Severin, a proud, aging man with sharp eyes dulled by politics. Cassian knelt. "Your Majesty, the northern winds bring whispers of a curse." "I can stop it," the emperor frowned. "By consorting with old cults?" "I do what Rome requires," Cassian said smoothly. "If the gods have power, I'll take it for us before the Northmen do." The emperor studied him. "You speak like a man touched by something dark." Cassian's lips twitched. "Darkness wins wars, my emperor." Meanwhile, Astrid followed one of the sea priests to the catacombs. Fenrir shadowed her from a distance, moving silently through torchlit tunnels. The deeper they went, the stronger the stench of salt and decay became. The walls were wet, carved with strange runes, older than Latin, older than the North itself. Astrid crouched behind a pillar, watching as the priests gathered around a pool of black water. One of them raised his arms. The tide rises. The blood of the wolf returns to the sea. Before Astrid could retreat, a cold voice echoed behind her. Watching can be dangerous, northern witch. Cassian stood in the passage, his sword drawn. Astrid froze. He stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with unnatural light. Tell me, why does the North send spies into my city? Before she could answer, Fenrir's voice came from the shadows. To remind you that the sea doesn't belong to Rome. Cassian turned just in time to block Fenrir's strike. Steel met steel, sparks flying. Their blades clashed again and again, Fenrir's brute strength against Cassian's precision. The priests scattered as the catacombs shook with their battle. Cassian's eyes flared blue. You're no man? Fenrir's fangs glinted in the torchlight. Neither are you. Cassian's grin widened. Then perhaps we were made for each other. With a roar, Fenrir threw him against the wall, but Cassian vanished into mist, leaving only the echo of laughter behind. Astrid ran to Fenrir. He's not human. No, Fenrir said, breathing hard. He's like me. But he serves the wrong master. As they escaped into the night, the sound of bells filled the air. Rome was waking to the storm. Astrid looked back at the city's glowing skyline. He'll come for us. I hope he does, Fenrir said. I'm done running from the tide. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Rome, once loud with merchants and laughter, now moved like a wounded beast, limping, suspicious, afraid. Word of dark rituals spread through the taverns and temples. Men whispered that the gods were angry, that something had come from the sea to collect its due. Fenrir and his men stayed hidden in the shadow of the southern wall, waiting for Astrid's word. She had gone to meet a contact among the Roman scribes, a friend of Lucia, the innkeeper, who claimed to know Cassian's movements. The wind that night was dry and bitter, the kind of wind that carried bad omens. Inside their small camp, Torvald sharpened his sword by firelight, his jaw tight. He had grown restless. We sit and wait, like ghosts, he said, while this Roman general walks free beneath the moon. Fenrir didn't look up. He's not a man you kill in the open. Torvald's eyes flashed. Then what do you suggest? We hide until his soldiers find us? Until the sea god himself comes crawling up the Tiber? Eric, ever the peacemaker, stepped between them. Enough, Torvald. You know our Lord has a plan. Torvald stood, anger in his voice. I see no plan, only waiting, only fear. Fenrir's gaze lifted slowly, cold and steady. You doubt me? Torvald hesitated. For the first time, his loyalty wavered. I doubt what we've become. We are not raiders anymore. We are shadows chasing ghosts. Fenrir rose. His presence alone silenced the fire's crackle. If you wish to leave, go. But do not speak against me again. Torvald clenched his fists, then threw his whetstone into the dirt and stormed away into the night. Eric watched him go, worry etched in his face. He's lost, Fenrir. War without purpose makes men mad. Fenrir nodded once. Then may the gods guide him back, if they still listen to us. That same night, Astrid returned with grave news. Cassian has the Emperor's ear, she said. He's convinced Marcus Aurelius that the Northmen bring a plague, a curse from the sea. Fenrir frowned. Then Rome will hunt us. Worse, Astrid whispered. Cassian means to use you, Fenrir. He told the Emperor that your blood, your curse, can make Rome immortal. The words struck him like a blade. My blood? She nodded. He wants to bleed the gods from your veins. In the marble halls of the palace, Cassian Vero stood before the emperor, his armor gleaming like liquid night. "The northern demon exists," he said smoothly. "I've seen him. His strength defies death itself." The emperor's tired eyes narrowed. "You speak of legends, Vero." "My empire does not fight shadows." Cassian stepped closer. "Then let me bring you light, Majesty. Let me capture him. His blood can end death itself." The emperor hesitated. The hunger in Cassian's voice was unmistakable, yet the promise of immortality, it was too tempting. "Bring me this creature," he said finally. "Alive." Cassian bowed low. "As you command, my emperor." By dawn, the Roman streets were crawling with soldiers. Posters marked with red ink appeared on the walls. "Wanted, the northern mercenary known as Fenrir Kaland, alive." When Astrid saw one, her heart sank. "They know your name." Fenrir studied the parchment. "Then we've run out of hiding places." Eric asked, "What now?" Fenrir's voice was calm, almost cold. "Now we remind them why the North is feared." That night, the Romans received their first warning. Their granaries burned under moonlight, their patrols vanished without a sound, and on the temple steps of Neptune, someone carved words in blood, "The sea remembers its debt." Fear gripped the city. Cassian, however, only smiled. "He's coming to me," he said softly, "as I wanted." 2 nights later, Torvald returned, but not alone. He walked into the Roman barracks wearing a hood, his axe hidden under a cloak. The guards stopped him, but he spoke calmly. "I know where the northern demon hides." Cassian himself stepped from the shadows, and why would a Viking betray his own? Torvald's eyes were empty, because he forgot us. Because he made us fight shadows while he played God. Cassian's smile was slow and cruel. "Then perhaps you and I share an understanding?" He motioned to his men. "Show him mercy until I no longer need him." The betrayal struck at dawn. Fenrir's camp lay deep in the hills, hidden by forest mist. He was sharpening his axe when the first arrow hissed past his ear. "Ambush!" Eric roared. Dozens of Roman soldiers poured from the trees, their armor flashing like fire. Fenrir's men fought fiercely, but the enemy was ready. "Hold the line!" Fenrir shouted, cutting down 2 soldiers with a single swing. Astrid raised her hands, chanting old words. The sky darkened, thunder echoing across the valley. But before her spell could strike, a net of silver chains dropped over her. She screamed as the runes burned her skin. "Astrid!" Fenrir charged, but Cassian appeared from the smoke, blade drawn. "Still chasing ghosts, wolf?" he sneered. Fenrir swung his axe. Cassian blocked it, the impact shattering a nearby tree. Sparks flew as their weapons met again and again, each strike shaking the earth. But Cassian was not alone. Roman sorcerers surrounded the battlefield, chanting words stolen from the old northern tongues. The ground cracked. Fenrir felt his strength falter, the magic biting into his blood, pulling at the curse inside him. Astrid cried out, "They're binding you!" Cassian grinned. "Yes, the wolf of the north belongs to Rome now." He thrust his sword forward. The blade pierced Fenrir's side, not fatal, but deep enough for his blood to spill onto the stones. Cassian caught it in a silver cup, his voice trembling with hunger. "The blood of gods?" "The blood of immortality." Fenrir fell to his knees, fury burning through the pain. "You'll regret this." Cassian drank. The world went silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Cassian's body convulsed, his veins darkening, his eyes blazing red. He screamed as power tore through him, half divine, half cursed. He dropped the cup, his laughter echoing through the forest. "So this is what it feels like to be a god." Astrid broke free, her voice shaking with fear. "Fenrir, I know," Fenrir growled, staggering to his feet. "He's becoming me." When the smoke cleared, the Romans had taken Astrid and Eric captive. Fenrir lay buried under the fallen trees, his blood staining the earth. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Cassian standing over him, eyes glowing like twin suns, voice cold as iron. "You gave me eternity, Wolf," he said. "Now I'll use it to erase your kind." Then everything faded to black. Days passed. When Fenrir awoke, the sky was red. He was alone. The chains were gone, the forest silent. His wound had healed, but something inside him had changed, deeper, darker. He knelt by the ashes of his camp and pressed his hand into the soil. "I will find you," he whispered, "to Astrid, to Eirik, to the betrayer Torvald, and to Cassian, and I will end this with blood." The wind carried his vow through the trees, across the sea, and into the heart of Rome itself. The forest was silent for 3 days after the battle. No birds sang, no wolves howled. Only the whisper of wind through dead leaves marked the passing of time. Fenrir Kalen lay in the ruins of his camp, half buried in ash and blood. His wounds had closed long ago, but the pain remained. It wasn't the kind a blade could give. It was something older, colder. When he finally rose, the ground beneath him cracked. The earth itself seemed to recoil from what he had become. He walked to a stream nearby, his reflection trembling in the dark water. His skin was paler now, his eyes dimly red even in daylight. His breath left no frost, his heart silent. He was no longer mortal, but neither was he whole. That night he built a pyre for his fallen men. One by one he placed their weapons beside them, Eirik's broken spear, Torvald's second axe left behind in guilt, and Astrid's amulet found near the edge of the Roman trail. He lit the fire and whispered an old prayer. "May your souls find the halls of our fathers, may mine never disturb their rest." The flames rose high, reflected in his unblinking eyes. The heat didn't burn him anymore. For weeks, Fenrir wandered south through the old lands, through ruined villages, Roman patrols, and silent temples. He was hunted, cursed, forgotten. Yet everywhere he went, he felt the pull of something calling him east, toward the sea. At night, strange visions haunted him. He saw Cassian Varro seated upon a throne of marble and blood, the emperor kneeling before him. He saw Astrid in chains, her eyes glowing faintly as she whispered words the gods feared. And he saw a storm rising from the ocean, a tide blacker than night. When he woke, his hands were always red. In Rome, the curse had already begun to spread. Cassian Varro walked the palace halls as if he owned them. His armor gleamed, but his eyes burned with an unnatural fire. The emperor's physicians whispered that the general had stopped sleeping, that wounds no longer marked his flesh. At first, Marcus Aurelius Severan dismissed the rumors, but one night he saw Cassian with his own eyes, standing in the moonlight, his shadow stretching across the floor like a serpent. "You promised me immortality," the emperor said, "yet my hair grows white and yours stays dark." Cassian smiled faintly. "Then perhaps you should drink as I did." The emperor recoiled. "What are you?" Cassian stepped closer, voice soft. "Evolution." When the guards entered moments later, they found the emperor pale and silent, his veins black, his eyes wide open. Cassian stood beside him, calm and still. By dawn, word spread that the emperor had fallen ill. By sunset, Cassian Varro ruled Rome. Fenrir reached the city's outskirts 2 weeks later. He saw the banners changed, no longer the golden eagle, but a new sigil, a serpent coiled around a sun, the symbol of Cassian's order. The streets were quieter than before. Fear had settled deep into the heart of the people. Every night, wagons left the palace, carrying bodies to the catacombs. Every dawn, soldiers returned stronger, faster, colder. Fenrir watched from the shadows, unseen. His senses were sharper than ever. He could hear the blood in men's veins, smell fear like smoke. He no longer needed to eat, but the hunger was always there, a burning behind his ribs, whispering to him in the voice of the sea god. "Drink, Fenrir." The blood of men is your strength now. You are mine." He clenched his teeth. "I am no one's." In the slums of Rome, Fenrir found Lucia, the innkeeper. Her tavern had been emptied and burned, but she still lived, hiding in the ruins with her brother and a handful of rebels. When she saw him, she almost didn't recognize him. "By the gods," she breathed, "you're alive." "For now," he said. She led him below into the cellars, where candlelight flickered against damp stone. "Cassian hunts anyone who stood against him. Half the city's priests have vanished, and your woman, Astrid, he keeps her in the old temple, chained to his altar." Fenrir's hand tightened around his axe. "He'll regret that." Lucia grabbed his arm. "You can't fight him." "He's not human anymore. He has generals who bleed darkness and soldiers who feel no pain." "I know," Fenrir said. "He's like me." Lucia frowned. "Then you'll destroy each other." "Maybe," he said, "but not before I save her." That night, Fenrir broke into the old temple of Neptune. The halls smelled of salt and blood. Statues of the old gods were cracked and broken, their faces smeared with black resin. Torches burned blue instead of orange. He moved silently through the shadows, his senses stretched thin, until he heard her voice. "Fenrir." Astrid stood before the altar, bound by chains that pulsed faintly with light. Her hair was tangled, her face pale, but her eyes burned with the same fire he remembered. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "He'll know." "I don't care," he said, breaking one chain. "You can't fight him yet," she gasped. "The curse grows in both of you." "He's feeding it, spreading it." Fenrir froze. "Feeding it?" She nodded weakly. "Every time he drinks blood, the sea god strengthens. He's turning Rome into a vessel, an empire of the damned." Before Fenrir could answer, the torches dimmed. The air grew colder. Cassian's voice echoed through the temple. "Welcome back, Wolf." He stepped from the shadows, wearing a black cloak embroidered with gold. No longer a general, but something divine. His eyes glowed like molten metal, his smile calm and cruel. "You survived the binding." Impressive Fenrir drew his axe. "Release her." Cassian laughed softly. "She stays." "She's my link to the old tongues, the only one who can read what even the gods have forgotten." "I'll kill you," Fenrir growled. "You'll try." Cassian snapped his fingers. The chains around Astrid blazed with light, and she screamed as the curse inside her awakened. Fenrir lunged, striking with all his strength, but Cassian caught the blade with one hand. The sound was like thunder. "You can't kill me," Cassian said. "We share the same blood now." "Then I'll spill it." They clashed again, faster than sight, each strike a storm of fire and steel. The temple walls cracked, the marble floor shattered. Astrid fell to her knees, chanting a protection spell, but the energy that filled the room was too strong, too ancient. Cassian's blade cut deep into Fenrir's chest. "You are a mistake, Halen, a creature of half a curse. I am its perfection." Fenrir grinned through blood. "Then why do you still fear me?" He drove his axe upward, catching Cassian across the face. Black blood spilled. The first Cassian had shed since drinking from the cup. Cassian staggered back, eyes blazing. "So the wolf still bites." Before Fenrir could strike again, Cassian vanished into shadow, his laughter echoing through the temple. Astrid fell forward, coughing blood. Fenrir caught her before she hit the ground. "Stay with me," he said. She pressed a trembling hand to his chest. "You must go north again. The sea god's heart lies there, in the ice. If Cassian finds it first, the curse will never end." Fenrir looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "Then I'll find it before he does." "And if you fail?" He brushed her hair from her face. "Then the world burns." She smiled weakly. "Then burn bright, my Alpha." As dawn broke, Fenrir left Rome through the eastern gate, cloaked in blood and shadow. Behind him, Cassian's new empire began to stir, its people dreaming the same dream of endless life, its rivers running red. Ahead of him lay the north, frozen, ancient, waiting. The sea whispered to him again, "Come home, Fenrir Kaland. The gods are not done with you." He didn't answer. He only walked toward the rising sun and the war that would decide the fate of both men and monsters. The north had changed. When Fenrir crossed the frozen seas months later, the world felt hollow, as if the land itself remembered what he had become. The snow was darker now, the skies red at dawn, and the old fjords whispered with voices that were not human. He sailed alone in a blackened ship with no sails, pushed by wind that obeyed no storm. His breath no longer fogged in the cold. His blood didn't freeze. The hunger kept him warm. Every night he dreamed of Astrid, her voice echoing through the waves. Sometimes she called for him. Sometimes she begged him not to return. But he did, because he had to find it. The heart beneath the ice, the heart of the sea god, the origin of the curse. He reached the cliffs of Skildar Fjord under a dead moon. Once his clan had ruled here, warriors, hunters, shipwrights. Now the halls were empty, the longhouse burned, the totems of Odin and Freya half buried in snow. Fenrir walked among the ruins until he found an old man sitting by a frozen fire, wrapped in wolf pelts. "I knew you'd come," the old man said, not turning. His voice was cracked but strong. Fenrir stopped. "Elder Bjorn." The old man smiled faintly. "You still remember your chieftain's name?" "I remember everything," Fenrir said. Bjorn looked up at him, eyes reflecting the moonlight. "And yet you don't breathe." Silence. "You've seen what lies beyond the veil, haven't you?" Bjorn said. "The blood of the drowned god runs through you now." Fenrir nodded. "I came to end it." Bjorn chuckled softly. "You can't end what was never meant to die." He led Fenrir down into the caves beneath the fjord, the old burial tunnels of their ancestors. Carved deep into the ice, the walls glowed faintly blue. "This is where the sea god first spoke to our people," Bjorn said, "long before Rome, before even Odin's name was known. The old ones called him Ran's consort, the god who fed on drowned souls." They reached the lowest chamber where an ancient altar stood. In its center, buried in crystal ice, something pulsed faintly, red and alive. "The heart," Fenrir whispered. Bjorn nodded. "It was found after the great flood. Your forefathers built their strength from its whispers. They called it a gift, but every gift from the sea demands something in return." Fenrir stared into the frozen light. "Cassian wants this. He thinks it will make him unstoppable." Bjorn's eyes dimmed. "Then he will bring the end of all men." The ground shook suddenly. The torches flickered. Bjorn looked up. "He's already here." From the tunnel above came the sound of footsteps, slow, heavy, echoing like drums. Fenrir turned, axe ready. The shadows stretched as Cassian Vero stepped into the chamber, wearing armor black as oil, his cloak lined with scales that shimmered faintly in the light. "You've traveled far, Wolf," Cassian said, "but the heart belongs to me." Bjorn raised his staff. "You bring death to our sacred halls, Roman." "You'll find no welcome here," Cassian smiled coldly. "Old man, I've already been welcomed by your god." He raised his hand, and black fire erupted from his palm, slamming into the chieftain's chest. Bjorn's body flew backward, hitting the ice wall with a crack. He fell without a sound. "Enough!" Fenrir roared. Their weapons clashed again, steel against shadow, fury against eternity. But this time, Cassian was stronger. The closer they fought to the heart, the more the darkness inside him grew. Each strike sent waves of power through the cave, breaking ancient carvings and splitting the walls. "You can't kill me," Cassian said, catching Fenrir's axe in one hand. "I am the god's chosen now." Fenrir gritted his teeth. "Then let's see if your god bleeds." He drove a hidden dagger into Cassian's side, forged from the same silver that bound Astrid's chains. Cassian screamed, the wound burning like acid. Fenrir pushed him back toward the altar. "You want the heart? Take it. With one brutal swing, he shattered the ice. The cave exploded with light, crimson and blue, sea and blood merging. The air turned to mist, the walls rippling like water. Cassian staggered toward the heart, reaching out with shaking hands. "It's mine!" But before he could touch it, something rose from beneath the ice, a shadow the size of a mountain, with eyes like drowned stars. The sea god? Its voice was not heard, but felt, inside bone, inside blood. Two sons of the curse, two halves of my hunger. Only one may serve. Cassian shouted, "I am your vessel." Fenrir fell to one knee, gripping his axe. "And I am your end?" The god struck. Cassian was thrown against the wall, the veins in his body glowing with black light. Fenrir was lifted by unseen hands, his blood pulled from his veins, swirling into the heart like mist. Bjorn's spirit appeared beside him, whispering, "You can't fight the god with hate. You must bind it." With sacrifice, Fenrir gasped. "Whose?" Bjorn's voice echoed like the wind. "Yours." As Cassian rose again, half his face gone, eyes burning with unholy light, Fenrir did the only thing left. He drove his axe straight through his own chest, letting his cursed blood spill over the heart. The god screamed. The world trembled. The light collapsed inward, dragging Cassian with it. The ice sealed shut. When the storm ended, the cave was silent again. Bjorn's body was gone. Cassian was gone. The heart was gone. Only Fenrir remained, barely standing, his wounds no longer healing, his eyes dim. He looked toward the sea tunnel and whispered, "Astrid." Then he fell. But far away, in Rome, Astrid woke from a deep sleep, gasping for air. The mark on her wrist, the one bound by Cassian's magic, was gone. She looked toward the window, where the sun was rising, brighter than it had in years. And though she didn't know why, she whispered his name. "Fenrir." The sun had not touched Rome in 70 days. Dark clouds hung over the marble city like a funeral shroud, and the streets reeked of incense, blood, and fear. Whispers spoke of omens, of temples cracking, statues weeping, and soldiers seeing wolves in the smoke above the Colosseum. But in the heart of the city, within a palace built from black stone and gold, Cassian Vero sat upon an iron throne, alive, at least what looked alive. His flesh had healed in ways no man's should. The silver wound Fenrir gave him had scarred his chest, but instead of fading, it pulsed faintly with crimson light, the mark of the sea god's power still feeding him. He was no longer a vampire, nor a man. He was something in between. A shadow emperor, half spirit, half hunger. And Rome was his feast. "Another rebellion in the south, my lord," said Lucilla, one of the high priestesses, kneeling before him. "They say the crops have died." "The people beg for your mercy." Cassian's eyes flickered, molten red behind the mask of his calm. "Mercy is a luxury for the living," he murmured. "Are they?" Lucilla swallowed. "Some, no longer." He leaned forward, voice soft as ash. "Then feed the rest. Let the dead serve the harvest." Lucilla bowed, trembling, "As you command." When she was gone, Cassian stood and stared out across the city from his balcony. Rome stretched endless below him. The empire he once sought to conquer through war, now bound to him through fear. Yet he felt no victory, because every night, in the silence after the screams, he heard Fenrir's voice. "You can't rule what you've damned." And beneath the marble floor, where the palace had been rebuilt upon ancient catacombs, the heart beneath the ice pulsed faintly, sealed in crystal. The god still lived, and whispered to him too. Far north, weeks later, Astrid rode through the ruins of Fenrir's homeland with a caravan of survivors, families who once followed the Kaelan banner. She no longer wore the seer's robes. Her braids were unbound, her eyes harder, sharper. Around her neck hung a single wolf fang, Fenrir's. They had found his body months after the cave collapsed, or what remained of it, frozen in ice, untouched by decay, as if waiting. And every night since, Astrid heard his voice in her dreams. Find me beneath the wolf star. She didn't know what it meant, but she could feel his spirit still. Not gone, not at peace, bound somewhere between gods and men. So when a rider from the south came to the camp, wearing Roman armor, face pale and eyes hollow, and said, "The emperor calls for you," Astrid didn't hesitate, because she already knew which emperor. The road to Rome was long, but it burned faster than before. Villages lay silent, fields turned to salt, rivers ran black with oil. The empire was rotting from the inside. By the time Astrid reached the city walls, she understood. Cassian Varro had won, but not as a man. He had become what Fenrir once fought to destroy. Inside the gates, statues of the gods were gone, replaced by black pillars carved with runes, not of Rome, but of the north, the same runes that sealed the heart. She whispered, "Fenrir, what have you done?" That night, she was brought before Cassian. He looked exactly as she remembered, the same perfect features, the same cold smile. But his eyes were empty now, filled with the silence of centuries. "Astrid," he said, voice smooth as smoke, "you've come far." She stood tall. "I came to end what you began." Cassian's lips curved. "End? No, no. You've come to finish it. You and I, we share him now. His blood, his curse." She flinched. "You lie?" "Do I?" He stepped closer. "Do you not dream of him each night? Do you not feel the hunger growing inside you?" Astrid's breath caught. She could feel it even now, the faint pull under her skin, the ache for something beyond life. "What did you do to me?" she whispered. Cassian's grin widened. "He sacrificed himself to bind the god, but his blood reached you before it fell. You carry his gift, Astrid. You are the last of his line." She raised her dagger. "Then I'll end it." Cassian laughed, and the sound made the candles tremble. "Kill me, and you kill him. His soul is bound to mine. You can destroy the body, but not the chain." He leaned in close, voice barely a whisper. "He's still here, Astrid. I hear him when I sleep. Do you?" Her hand shook. Tears burned her eyes, but she didn't lower the blade. "I will find a way," she said, "even if it means tearing your heart from the gods themselves." Cassian smiled. "Then you'll need to go where even gods drown." That night, Astrid fled Rome. She rode through the marshes south of the Tiber, guided by moonlight and memory, following the same constellations Fenrir once taught her as children. Before war, before the curse, and when she reached the cliffs at dawn, she looked east and saw it. A faint glow over the horizon, like red fire beneath the waves, the wolf star, Fenrir's star. Back in Rome, Cassian stood at his balcony once more. The sky above was darker than before. The gods' whispers filled his mind. She carries his blood. The wolf must return, Cassian smiled, eyes burning like molten gold. Then let the world burn with him. The first snow of spring fell as Astrid rode south along the broken Roman road. The world was quiet except for the wind, carrying whispers she could almost understand. She had not slept in days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, Fenrir Kaland, the man who once swore he would conquer the world, and now haunted her from beneath it. And sometimes, when the night grew too still, she felt his heartbeat inside her own. She stopped at a stream to drink, kneeling by the water. Her reflection looked different now. Pale skin, faint veins glowing blue beneath the surface. Her breath no longer misted in the cold. She touched the wolf fang around her neck and whispered, "You said you'd never let the dark take me." The wind rose, and in that sound she almost heard his voice. "Then don't let it take you, Astrid." She closed her eyes, and suddenly the world around her changed. She stood in the past, the scent of pine and salt in the air. The long house was alive with music and laughter. Torches burned, and the sea roared beyond the cliffs. It was the night before Fenrir's first raid, the night they said goodbye. He was sitting by the fire, sharpening his axe, his hair catching the light like molten gold. When he looked up, his grin was the same as always, confident, reckless, and warm. "You came to see me off," he said. Astrid folded her arms. "Someone has to make sure you don't get yourself killed." He laughed. "You don't think I can handle a few Saxons? I think you like showing off more than fighting." Fenrir's eyes softened. "Maybe I fight so you can stay here. So you don't have to see what the world does to men like me." She hesitated. "And what if it changes you?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Then you'll remind me who I was." She looked at him for a long moment, the fire between them flickering like breath. Then she whispered, "Always." When he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. Astrid gasped as she snapped back to the present. The stream was gone, replaced by a black river under moonlight. The vision had faded, but her heart still pounded. Each memory was stronger now, sharper, like the bond between them was waking. She continued south until she reached the ruins of a temple carved into a cliffside. An old shrine to Neptune, half buried by time. Symbols of waves and serpents were etched into the stone, but newer marks had been carved over them, runes of the north. Her pulse quickened. Inside, the air was thick with damp and decay. Moss glowed faintly on the walls. At the center stood a cracked altar, and upon it a single silver chalice filled with dark water. She stepped closer, and the water rippled. "Astrid." Her breath caught. The voice was deep, rough, familiar. Him. She reached toward the chalice, and light exploded across the room. They were in the forest again, years earlier. Fenrir and Astrid sparred with wooden blades, their laughter echoing between the trees. "You're too slow," he teased, blocking her strike. "Or maybe you're too proud," she countered, tripping him with a sweep of her foot. He hit the ground with a grunt, and she pressed the tip of the blade to his chest. "Dead." Fenrir laughed, hands raised. "You've grown cruel, Seer." She smiled. "You taught me." He caught her wrist gently, his grin fading. "If I don't return from the next war?" "Don't say that." "I mean it. If I fall, you must lead them. I'm not a warrior." He touched her cheek. "You're the only one who sees beyond the blood." "That's what they'll need when I'm gone." She swallowed hard. "And what will you need?" He hesitated. "Someone who believes I can be more than my father's son." She lowered her blade. "Then come back, Fenrir Kalen. Or I'll find you myself." The vision shattered. Astrid stumbled back, gasping. The chalice trembled, and for a moment she saw Fenrir's reflection in the dark water, eyes fierce, face pale as marble. "Astrid, he's using the heart. The god is not dead." Her voice shook. "Where are you?" "Beneath Rome." "Beneath the sea." Then his image faded. Astrid steadied herself. Her heart thundered with purpose now, the kind of resolve she hadn't felt since the night he fell. If Fenrir was trapped between gods and death, she would go where no living soul dared. She tore a strip of cloth from her cloak, dipped it into the chalice, and watched as it turned black with the sea god's mark. A swirling rune, like an open eye. "The path to him lies beneath the drowned city," she whispered, and behind her something stirred in the shadows. A low growl, a scraping of claws on stone. Astrid turned slowly. A creature emerged, twisted, wolf-shaped, but made of mist and bone. Its eyes glowed red. Her breath caught. "Fenrir?" It tilted its head, sniffed the air, then lunged. Astrid rolled aside, grabbing her dagger. The blade flashed, silver striking shadow. The beast howled, recoiling. She pressed her hand to the rune-stained cloth, and the mark flared, sending a burst of white light through the chamber. The creature vanished, leaving behind only a whisper in the dark. "Find the gate. The wolf star will rise when the blood moon returns." Astrid fell to her knees, shaking. She looked down at the dagger in her hand, the same one Fenrir had forged years ago. On its hilt, beneath the dried blood and wear, the faint carving still remained, for the one who sees. She closed her eyes. I see you, Fenrir. I'll bring you back. Outside, the clouds parted. The wolf star burned red above the horizon, brighter than it had in centuries. And far below the earth, in the depths of the drowned sea, a pulse of light answered it. Astrid reached Rome again under a blood-red dawn. The Tiber stank of rot. Fog rolled off the water like breath from a sleeping beast. Guided by the rune-marked cloth, she found an entrance hidden behind the old temple of Neptune, a stairway spiraling down into the earth. Each step dripped with salt. The air grew colder, heavier. The light from her torch shrank until only the rune on her wrist glowed. Whispers filled the dark, voices of sailors, priests, and soldiers long dead. She ignored them and kept walking. At the bottom, the stairs opened into a vast chamber, a cathedral drowned by time. Columns leaned like broken ribs, water pooled between slabs of marble. At its center rose a gate of black stone etched with Norse runes. The words read, "Blood binds the sea. The wolf opens the way." Astrid drew her dagger and cut her palm. Her blood hissed as it touched the gate. The stone groaned and split apart. Beyond lay a corridor glowing faintly blue. Every wall pulsed like living flesh. As she moved through, flashes hit her, memories that weren't hers, men drowning beneath waves, Cassian standing before the heart, a god of shadows coiled around him whispering, "The sea remembers its sons." Then another voice cut through, the one she longed for. "Astrid, don't trust the light." "Fenrir!" she called, running forward. The tunnel opened into a cavern where the sea poured through cracks in the ceiling, forming a floating sphere of water suspended by invisible force. Inside that sphere, faint and still, was him, Fenrir Kaland. His body hung in the water like a statue carved of moonlight. Chains of dark metal bound his wrists and throat. Astrid pressed a hand to the barrier. "Fenrir, I found you." His eyes fluttered open, gold and wild. "You shouldn't have come." She smiled through tears. "You said you'd never let the dark take me." "And yet it has. Look around you." The chamber trembled. Water dripped upward instead of down. From the walls, shapes emerged, half human, half tide. The drowned priests of the sea god, their mouths full of coral and teeth. Astrid drew her dagger. "Then I'll cut through the dark too." "Astrid, the god watches." Too late. The water sphere burst, flooding the room. The drowned surged toward her. She slashed and spun, silver flashing. But for every creature she struck down, two more crawled from the water. Fenrir roared, breaking one chain. The echo shook the cavern. The rune on Astrid's wrist flared, linking their power. Together they tore through the drowned, light and shadow entwined. When the last body fell, silence returned, broken only by the heartbeat of the sea. Fenrir knelt before her, chains half shattered. "You shouldn't have risked this." She touched his face. "You once said I'd remind you who you were." "Now it's my turn." "Then hear me," he said. "The god isn't dead." Cassian freed a fragment of it. Its core lies beneath the palace. If he merges with it, the world will drown in shadow. Astrid nodded. "Then we end it. Together." Fenrir looked toward the ceiling where faint red light filtered down. "When the blood moon rises again, the god will awaken. That's when we strike." Astrid took his hand, helping him stand. "Then we have little time." Above, in the palace, Cassian Varro stood before the sealed heart. The veins of black crystal spread through the floor like roots. He smiled as he felt them stir. "The wolf returns," he whispered. "Good. Every god needs its opposite." The chamber pulsed once, deep and slow, like the breath of something